Summary of Darkness at Noon by Arthur Koestler. Nicholas Salmanovich Rubashov, the main character in Darkness at Noon, is in a jail cell when the story starts, and it seems like he knows what will happen to him next. The story goes back in time to a few hours earlier, when Rubashov woke up from a dream, a recurrent dream, that he was being arrested, only to find that two police officers were actually arresting him. They go to the door of the porter, Wasilij, who fought in the war with Rubashov and is very loyal to him. Rubashov is going to be arrested because number 1, the boss of the unnamed, but clearly Soviet Communist, Party, told them to do so. Rubashov goes with the officials to the jail, but as a former party bureaucrat himself, he looks down on this younger generation, which he thinks lacks the intelligence and subtlety that he had. Rubashov says he has a toothache when he gets to jail. This pain will come back every time he thinks about being an individual, so he is left alone. He talks to one of the prisoners in the next cell, whom he only calls number 402, by tapping on the wall in a way that sounds like Morse code. 402 is a counter-revolutionary who still supports the monarchy that was in power before the rebels took over. However, he is more interested in spreading prison gossip and talking about women. Rubashov remembers a time when he was a diplomat in Germany spreading the party's message abroad and had to meet with Richard, a regional boss of the party. They met at an art gallery, where Rubashov told Richard that printing his own flyers for the cause instead of using the official party message was a mistake. At the time, he was looking at a Pieta painting of the Virgin Mary. Richard thought he could change the party's message to attract more people, but Rubashov told him that the party could never be wrong because it stood for the most revolutionary idea in history, so its message shouldn't be changed. Richard got more and more worried when he realized that Rubashov might be telling the Central Committee about him, but Rubashov just stayed cold and blank. Back in his cell, Rubashov, who is getting more nervous without cigarettes, hears from number 402 that there is a new political prisoner who keeps looking up at Rubashov's cell from the jail courtyard. Rubashov doesn't recognize him, so he calls him Hairlip. Rubashov thinks about how he got to this point and why he was caught. It seems like the party has gone wrong somewhere, but Rubashov can't figure out how, since the party is history itself. Rubashov remembers another time when he had to go to Belgium and tell a group of people, including little Loey, a devoted party member who had put his life in danger for the cause more than once, that the party was going to break its promise to ban fascist countries. Little Loey wouldn't agree to this because he thought it went against what the change was all about. Little Loey hanged himself when he realized that the party would not let him go against the rules. Rubashov starts to think about certain things from the time he spent with little Loey and Richard, and they bother him. Ivanov, an old friend and fellow soldier, finally takes Rubashov away to question him. Ivanov seems to know that Rubashov is not guilty of treason and planning to kill number 1, but he says that they should do what's best for the party and that Rubashov should sign a statement saying he was a member of the opposition. So, the party will get the public statement it wants, and Rubashov won't have to die. Rubashov, on the other hand, wants to go against such clear reasoning. He keeps thinking about what he thinks the rules of history are and whether or not his choices, or those of number 1, will be forgiven over time or will have to be paid for. Gletkin, a member of the new generation who is much less funny than Ivanov, comes with Ivanov to the next questioning. Gletkin seems to really think that everything the party says is truth, and not just because it's convenient. Ivanov is sure that Rubashov just needs time to figure out how his situation makes sense. Gletkin, on the other hand, thinks that Rubashov will give in to torture. Rubashov has another memory to when he was having an affair with his secretary, Arlova. Arlova was finally named librarian at the office where he worked, but she was then accused of not replacing the books on the shelves with truer versions of party history. Rubashov put her off, but he did betray her in the end, and she was killed. Now that it's been a while, he thinks about the details of her body, and they make him feel worse and worse. In the meantime, a new prisoner named number 406, also known as Rip Van Winkle, comes. He had been in solitary confinement for 20 years in another country, but now he is in a whole new world with completely different ideas about what is right and what is true. Rubashov is taken to the barber that afternoon, and the barber puts a note in his collar that says, "Die in silence." Rubashov thinks that Ivanov's offer is possible and that he might accept it. Rubashov is taken outside to work out that afternoon. Ivanov has been making Rubashov's life better while he thinks, and Rubashov talks to Rip Van Winkle a little bit. Nearly 2 weeks after Ivanov's offer, the mood in the jail seems to have changed, and 402 tells Rubashov that a political prisoner is about to be killed. Michael Bogrov, an old friend and teacher of Rubashov, is in jail. Bogrov calls out Rubashov's name as he is led down the hall. Rubashov is shocked because all of a sudden, the cold logic that he has used his whole life to deal with the party is called into question. Rubashov goes back to Ivanov to be questioned about this, and he tries to explain it to him. Ivanov tells him that his moral concerns come from bourgeois ethics from the 1800s, which have no place in this revolutionary society. Rubashov does think that this society is different, but now he says that the death and damage caused by the party is what makes it different. After a long conversation about ideas, Ivanov goes to see Gletkin and tells him that his own way works better than Gletkin's and that Gletkin is an idiot who should be shot. Rubashov keeps trying to come up with an idea about how history works that would explain his position. Rubashov gives up after meeting another prisoner, a reactionary peasant, in the jail courtyard. Number 402 thinks that Rubashov is doing himself a disgrace, but Rubashov doesn't seem to care. After waiting to be taken to Ivanov, Rubashov is taken to another room where he is questioned by Gletkin. Ivanov has been arrested for treason, so this time it is Gletkin who is questioning Rubashov. Gletkin isn't interested in the kind of intellectual arguing and back and forth that Ivanov was. Instead, he states the charges against Rubashov in a very serious way. Rubashov can't believe that Gletkin actually believes the charges and doesn't just act like they're true. Hairlip is brought in by Gletkin. It turns out that he is the son of Professor Kiefer, an old friend of Rubashov's. Kiefer was put to death because he wouldn't change the history books to fit the new party version of history. Hairlip talks about a conversation between Rubashov and Kiefer in which Rubashov made fun of number one's methods and claimed that it was better to be pragmatic than to believe in party decisions with all your heart. Hairlip ends by saying that Rubashov then asked him to poison number one and kill him. Rubashov uses logic to show that this charge can't be true, but he quickly loses interest when he realizes it won't make a difference. During the interrogations, Gletkin keeps a bright light on Rubashov and doesn't let him sleep. This makes it seem like Rubashov's dreams and the real world are the same. Rubashov could either deny or admit to everything, but he has a strange sense of personal honor that makes him go through each charge one at a time and feel a brief sense of success with each one. Gletkin does eventually go a little off script. He tells Rubashov about his life as a peasant as a child and how he is sure that the masses need clear beliefs and well-performed confessions to help the party. Rubashov finally signs a paper agreeing to the charges, and Gletkin tells his stenographer that he did the right thing. He says that people always give in when they don't have enough food or water. The story moves to the porter Wasilij and his daughter Vera. Vera is reading him the record of Rubashov's trial and saying that Rubashov must be guilty. But Wasilij sees Rubashov as a kind of Christ figure who gave up his life for others. Wasilij has to be careful to keep his daughter from finding out about some of his Christian habits, like praying, because he knows she would love nothing more than to get him kicked out of the flat they share so she can move in with her fiancé. When the story goes back to Rubashov's point of view, he is still thinking about his ideas of history all the time. He is sure that there is no way to solve the ideological conflict between the person and the group in the party, but he thinks there might be a way to do so in the future, in a different society. Before he dies, he thinks about his dream of being jailed and wonders for the last time what, if anything, his death might mean. After his death, there is silence.
About the author. Arthur Koestler was born into a Jewish Hungarian family that had a fair amount of money. He went to school at the University of Vienna and then became a writer, writing stories from places like the Middle East, Paris, and Berlin. He tried to join the Communist Party of Germany at the end of 1931. When Koestler went to Spain as a Soviet agent during the Spanish Civil War, he was caught and put in jail for a while. The Nazi-Soviet non-aggression deal of 1938 and the news about the Moscow show trials made him lose faith in communism over time. This last one was a big reason why he wrote Darkness at Noon. Koestler was caught in 1939 and sent to an internment camp on the suspicion that he was working for the Soviets. At the time, he was writing the book and living in Paris with his girlfriend, Daphne Hardy. He ran away to England and joined the French Foreign Legion to avoid being caught. In 1948, he became a British citizen. He kept writing books, memoirs, and critical works for the rest of his life. In The Yogi and the Commissar, 1945, and The God That Failed, 1949, which are collections of his writings, he talks about how disappointed he was with communism. In the end, Koestler became very interested in how imagination, mysticism, and science are related. He was told he had Parkinson's disease near the end of his life. He was a strong backer of voluntary euthanasia, and in 1983, he and his third wife Cynthia killed themselves by taking too many pills.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.